Hi.
It'd probably be good for me to turn on my mic, and that would be why.
There we go. How are you?
I'm good.
Thanks for willing to do this.
Mm-hmm.
That was great. Just back when that stream happened, just seeing your reaction about when I asked those questions.
Yeah, that was like nobody asked those questions before.
So I would think, would the Pillow Man be like one of your first paid acting jobs?
No, actually, it was Roar the Grease Paint Smell of the Crowd when I was 8 years old.
Oh wow.
Pillow Man was 8 years after that.
Oh, I think maybe that would be like one of the first like darker acting roles that you had then.
I mean, Roar the Grease Paint Smell of the Crowd actually is pretty dark if you go into the history of that musical, because it's basically about it's set in a game setting, but it's about racism and also the gap between the rich and the poor, and how they get the poor to, or how rich people get the poor to basically play a game for them, and also make them mad at the wrong, instead of us getting mad at like the people who set the rules, we get mad at the other players
Mhm.
for playing against us. So it's I mean, it's not set in like it is supposed to be dark, but it actually really has a dark meaning in it.
Mhm. And so when you did get to LA, how did you get into SAG?
I was forced into it. My first like on camera thing was Aquila and the Bee, where I had a few lines, and then actually like at that time I was flying back and forth from Seattle to LA. And then I actually booked a movie in Seattle. And while I was on set for that movie was when I was what's called a must join, because it's
Yeah.
when you work within SAG at some point, uh, like the first job you have in SAG, you're SAG eligible at that point. And I didn't join right away because it's really expensive. And then I booked that movie, and then because I worked a certain amount of hours, you have to work a certain amount of hours in SAG, and then you become what's called a must join, and you have to join to be able to work on SAG projects again. And I was in the middle of the movie, so I had to join to keep working on that movie.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And is there like much of an interesting story about how you got involved with the Runaways?
Not really. That one actually was more of like, I was just an extra in that, so it was like really they were like, we need party goers that are teenagers or look like they're teenagers, and I sent in my headshot, and they were like, okay, come this day. That's it.
Okay. And what is the case, do you think, where you've been like the most starstruck in terms of who you've worked with?
Ooh, it was when I was working on, and this never actually aired because the pilot never went anywhere, but it was a pilot called Before We Were Famous, and I was working with oh gosh, what's his first name? His last name is Ackerman. Why can't I remember his first name right now? Anyways, he was the director. The director was Ackerman. He worked on Seinfeld.
Right.
So I was like, oh my god. And I remember that we were in rehearsal, and so they had me in my dressing room, and at that point, after my dressing room, they basically they were like, okay, they called Karina to set over the intercom, and I was like, okay, cool, we're gonna start rehearsal. And I'm walking down there, and here comes Ackerman towards me, and I'm like, it's fine, it's cool, it's fine, it's fine, it's cool, it's fine. You just do your work and pretend like you don't. Yeah. And then he said, I honestly didn't think he knew like my actual name
Oh,
or what I really looked like, because I was just like a co-star, so I'm not like part of the main cast or anything, and I only had like 5 lines. And we're walking like towards each other, and I'm thinking nothing's gonna happen, so it's gonna be fine, and you're just gonna go and do your work. And all of a sudden he goes, "Hi, Karina, you having a good day?" And my brain went blank, and I was like, days are good. And I was like, oh my god, fix this. And so I was like, yeah, you too, man. That still didn't work. So that was that one. And then there was another time where I was recording, and this one is for Splitting Time, which was done by Cartoon Network, and it's a Cartoon Network short, so it's on Cartoon Network's YouTube. It's but yeah, it's called Splitting Time. And I was playing this character Pin, and the people that were playing my parents were Fred Tatascore and Stephanie Lemlin. And at the time, that was like right when Overwatch was kind of like huge. So Fred Tatascore, I was like, Dad 76 is gonna play my dad. Oh my god. And then Stephanie Lemlin, of course, I was already excited about too, because she plays my favorite character in Young Justice. So I was like, it's Artemis. Oh my god, it's Artemis. Oh my god. And so I had to have a pep talk with myself and be like, you can't be a fan. You're working. You can't be a fan. And you have to be professional. So you're just gonna put all of your energy into that script, all of your focus into that script. That's what you're gonna do, because it was a group record, because this was done before the pandemic. So we were all actually in the same room recording together. And then we go on break. And I head to the bathroom, and when I get into the bathroom, Stephanie Lemlin is already washing her hands. And I didn't really think much of it, because I was like, I'm going to the bathroom, whatever. Yeah, people use the bathroom. So I go into the stall, and all of a sudden I hear from Stephanie, Corina, how long have you been an actor? Like, where did you study? And I was like, this is such a weird situation. I'm literally in the bathroom, in the stall, doing my business, and Stephanie Lemlin wants to have a conversation with me. I'm pretty sure I'm in either a dream or a nightmare, and I'm not sure which yet. And so I'm like, oh, I've been acting since I was 8, and like moved down here when I was to LA when I was 17, and just kind of been acting, here and there my whole life, really. And she then says to me, I hope you don't think that I am the weirdest person ever, but because I'm sure you notice, I have been staring at you while you've been performing, because you are just so good.
Oh.
And I can't stop staring at you while you perform. And I about fell in that toilet. I'm pretty sure there was some sort of noise that made, like, because I was like, what's going on? And so I was like, oh, thanks. I'm so glad I at least was in a stall, so she could see my face of me being like, oh my god, Stephanie Lemlin just said I was a good actor, and I want to cry. So that was a thing too. Yeah, those were the 2 times that I was really starstruck.
Okay. And there's some other specific on-camera things I was curious about. What was your experience on Shameless?
Oh, Shameless was funny because of course, Emmy Rossum was awesome to work aside with, and at that time, I believe I was already like really excited because she was in Phantom of the Opera, and I really liked her in that. Even though I don't necessarily like the show of Phantom of the Opera, but the music is good, and also she did a good job regardless of my feelings about the story itself. And she did a really great job in it, and so I was really excited to work with her. And actually, on what makes that day really crazy though was that I booked that Shameless, and then a day later I get a call from my agent that was like, so Glee wants you. And I go, oh, awesome, great, what day? The same day as Shameless. And I go, oh, am I gonna be able to do it? And she's like, I'm trying to work it out right now, because they did want you at the same, because when you work in film, generally speaking, they want you like super early in the morning, so that way they can get started in the day. And so my call time for Shameless was like 5 a.m. and Glee wanted me at 6 a.m. and I was like, there's no way. There's no way we're gonna go through makeup and all of that, like, because usually even just what seems like a 30-second scene that could take half a day. could being the operative word. So we were working with the Shameless people so that way I could also be, and with the Glee people, and being like, is it possible that you could record the scene that you need me for Glee later in the day? Is that possible? We were able to work it out with Shameless so that Shameless said that we will definitely be done at 11 a.m. So that way I could quickly drive to Paramount, which luckily was not too far away from the Shameless set. And quickly get to Paramount so that way I could record for Glee that day. And also, luckily, apparently, and I've auditioned for Glee several times before,
Mhm.
and like multiple times to the point where I'm like, why do they keep asking me back if they're not gonna hire me? And then I got hired. But apparently the writers of Glee apparently, and because this is what I remember, one of the writers actually came up to me and were like, we've been trying to get you on the show since day one. And I was like, wait, what? And they were like, yeah, we've been trying. But the problem was that we couldn't convince the producers that you looked different enough from the guidance counselor. Because they thought I looked too similar to the guidance counselor, which, yeah, I do kind of look a lot like that actress, especially at the time I had a bob.
Mhm.
So I looked exactly like her because we have like the same hair color almost, and we both have light skin and freckles, and they were just like, we didn't want like another main character student that looked exactly like the guidance counselor for people to be like, are they related? So they were trying to convince the producers that I would be fine on the show if I was just one line on screen and all the rest of my lines were off screen. And so apparently, because they've been wanting me on the show since day one, that was why they were willing to record my scene later in the day.
Wow.
Yeah. So I got really lucky.
Mhm. And was there a particular situation that happened that made you want to pursue voiceover opposed to on camera?
In 2015, I started feeling a lot of pain in my knees to the point where I actually had to be in a wheelchair part-time. And I was thinking, there's not a lot of opportunities on camera for disabled people.
Mhm.
Sorry, not sorry. The Hollywood really sucks at actually hiring diverse actors, and not only does that include people of color, but it also includes people with disabilities. And then if we get people of color that are disabled, though, like that, then it's they really suck at casting those people, especially. But I was like, there's not a lot of options for people with disabilities, physical disabilities, especially for on camera. So what if I did voiceover? Since my teachers keep on telling me that I should do voiceover, and I did voiceover a long time ago when I was 8. I became friends with Jeremy Bloom, who is the son of Steve Bloom.
Mhm.
And Steve Bloom was really awesome and gave me tips on which classes I should take and where to start. And so I was able to, yeah, I basically have where I am right now thanks to Steve. I am where I am because of Steve Bloom at this point.
Mhm.
But it was mainly because I was like, there's no way that with the physical disabilities that I have to deal with that I'm going to be able to work on camera as much. Which luckily those have calmed down now that we know what's actually happening, because it turns out I have early onset arthritis, so I am on medication for that, and that helps a lot. I still do use a wheelchair, but it's very rare that I need to use a wheelchair now. And I mean, I even do like weightlifting and aerial work because actually keep it with arthritis, if you keep moving, it can help it.
Right.
So I'm much better now, but yeah, that was basically the catalyst for me switching over to mainly doing voiceover. And now, I mean, I still do on camera, but obviously I'm much more I'm working a lot more in voiceover than I am in on camera.
Mhm. And everybody I've talked to kind of has different answers as to how they took to dubbing. What was it like for you?
It was easy for me. Now,
Okay.
mind you, not everybody has that story, but like one of the things that Steve Bloom gave me a tip on was to go take voice acting classes with Adventures in Voice Acting, because they can teach you how to dub. And they do ADR classes. And so I was in a class with Tony Oliver, and I'd said I'd never done dubbing, well, I had done ADR before to myself for an on-camera thing, but ADR to yourself when you see yourself on TV and the lip flaps are actually in English is a lot easier than something that's meant for a different language. That being said, when I went and did it, basically I was like, I just listened to like the musicality of the Japanese, and while you're watching it, you watch it in Japanese first, and you kind of you can kind of time out how long those lip flaps are before and I'm really good at timing things out in my brain for some reason. I don't understand it, but I also contribute that to video games because, you know, when you're playing Halo, you can have an internal clock in your head that tells you when your special ability is ready again. And also you can time out how long it takes to reload a gun and which specific guns, because some guns reload faster than others. So you can time that out in your head too, and it can help you while you're in a first-person shooter situation. So I think that contributed to me being able to time out the lip flaps pretty well, because he was very impressed first out of like being like, and you said you'd never done this before? And I was like, no. And he is like, well, that's insane because you're really good at it. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. And Tony Oliver actually really helped me, you know, also shape my career and get my start in dubbing.
And do you think like your first more dramatic part in anime would be in Erased?
Yeah, actually, that makes sense. I think it is that one. Yes, it is that one. Now that I think about it, it would be Erased. That one was the first one that was really like dark.
And well, one of my signature questions is always asking what is the most emotionally involved headspace you've had to go for voiceover, do you think?
For the Somnium Files, when I played Mizuki, I'm gonna try and not use spoilers for anybody that hasn't played the game, because you should, because the second one is coming out soon. But in the first game, Mizuki, and this is like in the first 5 minutes, they basically they're like, okay, so what happens is you find your mom dead on a carousel, and I'm like, oh, great. By the way, your mom was super abusive. Oh, both emotionally and physically. And I'm like, even better. Okay. And how did you find your mom dead on a carousel with an ice pick in her eye that you as the character pulled out and then went hiding in that carousel? That's what happened. Here you go. and then they were like, oh, and by the way, your dad, who you do love because he didn't physically abuse you, but he did give you up to his best friend because he decided that he couldn't take care of you. And I was like, and I like him? And they were like, well, yeah, because your mom was physically abusive, so therefore you do like your dad more just because of that. And I'm like, but he abandoned me. Okay, great. And how old is this character again? 12? Right, 12. 12. And she's already going through all of this. That's fantastic. And then of course she goes through even crazier stuff throughout the entire game. Because that's just the first part of it, and that's literally the first part of the game is that. So that would definitely be the darkest places that I've had to go for that character, especially because I had to deal with a lot of personal stuff that I had dealt with when I was younger as well. And gosh, there's this entire part where Mizuki is talking to the guy who basically adopted her or was forced to adopt her, and she's lived with him for 4 years by this point, and she's talking about you know, what makes a family, and she's talking about it with Date, and Date, of course, being this like, all of the sudden I have to be a father figure to this kid who's not even mine. is trying his best to also deal with the situation that this kid just witnessed her mom die, like dead, not die. She didn't witness the actual dying part, but like saw her mom dead and had to deal with that, and also dealing with the abandonment from her father. And she's talking to Dante about how like what he considers a family, and he's trying to answer the best that he can, and all of a sudden she breaks down crying and saying I killed my parents. And he's like, wait, what? And she's like I think it was because I like because she thinks that she's the reason why her parents broke up to begin with, right? Like a lot of kids do in nasty divorces. You know, yeah, she's like, I couldn't be the perfect child that my mom wanted. I got anytime that I couldn't you know, stay quiet when my mom wanted, and it was my fault. I killed them. And so yeah, it was a very, that was a dark one. And having to deal with those emotions of thinking that you are the reason why things are not working when it actually has nothing to do with you, especially from a child's perspective, because children are very aware, but instead of being like, well, it's clearly their problem, they internalize it and think it's their that it's their own fault.
Mm-hmm.
You know, yeah.
You think you have a personal preference to working on dark projects opposed to comedic then, considering?
Honestly, I love working on dark projects. And that it's funny because like if you had asked me that when I was a teenager, I would have been like, nope, I'm a comedian all the way. I only do funny stuff. I don't do that crying stuff because I'm not good at it and all that stuff. But once it actually like going through acting classes, it finally clicked on what crying on cue actually entailed and stuff like that. It was a light bulb and being like, oh, no, I love this. Okay, I get it now. But it took like 10 years of classes for me to actually get to the point where I'm like, oh my God, I've been making it way more difficult. No wonder I wasn't getting it. I was just making it too ridiculously difficult, and I should have listened to my teacher. Yeah. So my teacher Richard Leadley right now is probably like, see, I told you it was easy. Because he was the one that got me there after 10 years, and he had to deal with me. Oh God, I feel so sorry for him because he had to deal with me being like, I don't think it works like that. I'm sorry, Richard. It does work like that. I was just stupid.
Yeah, I was just listening back to the more like emotional parts that you had as Sailor Tin Nyanko, and that was really well done.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that show is a lot of fun. Also, I don't get to play villains very often, so that one was that was even better.
Mm-hmm. I could imagine that it had to be like a dream to become involved with Sailor Moon.
Well, I mean, Sailor Moon was my first anime that I've ever watched ever. So of course, yeah, when I booked that one, I cried.
Mm-hmm.
I like when I got the email that said I was going to be in it and this was my character, I actually cried because I was at the point where I was like, I just want to be involved some way. I don't even care if I'm an actual, I could be literally an assistant, like working behind the scenes for this show, and I would be happy. I just want to be involved. So when I actually got like a character, I was floored, and yeah, I cried a lot.
Mm-hmm. Everybody else I've talked to who's been part of the redub said that they auditioned for a lot of bigger characters. Did you have that opportunity as well?
Yeah, so basically when I auditioned originally for Sailor Moon, I auditioned for the Sailor Stars. Which are, you know, because it was the final season, so yeah, it was the Sailor Stars that I auditioned for, and it was all three of them, and then from that they chose for me to be Sailor Tin Nyanko.
And sort of kind of related to your answer, do you have a process for doing boy voices?
So boy voices are very much physicality, and then also maybe putting a little bit of raspiness. So like I use the raspiness from my nose. So when you're doing a boy voice, it's like just a little bit raspier, especially if it's a kid, you just make it younger, but it's like in your nose. It's almost like you have a constant cold. And everything is much more definitive and like I don't want to say grounded. It's like everything has a punch to it almost, depending on the boy, of course, but generally speaking. Because yeah, I've been starting to do a lot more boy voices lately, and they're a lot of fun.
So who do you think that you personally relate to in terms of anime characters you played?
That would be Naoko from
Okay.
Dino Girl Galco. She's clumsy and talks a lot and has grand like she's also very imaginative and like has like these grand ideas and also she's not she tries a like she reminds me of me when I was a kid, which is why I'm like, no, I'm right there with her. And then the fact that like when she gets angry she like turns into a dinosaur. I
Mhm.
mean, my friends know that like if I get really angry, I will blow up. So they said that the role, not only just because I'm obsessed with dinosaurs, that the role is perfect for me, but the role is perfect for me because of how I act when I am angry, and
Mhm.
especially when I was a kid. Yeah, that's Naoko is exactly how I was.
What about with Tatsumaki?
Tatsumaki is definitely more of me when I was in college. That snarkiness and stuff like that, that was definitely me in college. That was Tatsumaki.
And for those who don't know, how did you like how come you had to take over the role from Maria?
So Maria Harrington, she basically told them that she didn't have time to come back for the second season,
Hmm.
or for any future One Punch Man Tatsumaki situations, because she is now on Big City Greens, not only as an actor, but she's also a writer on it.
Yeah.
So she does two jobs on that, and she's like literally one of the lead characters in that show, and also is a writer on that show. And she said that she didn't have time to come back because she was working on those Disney stuff, and so they started the process of doing the so she basically relinquished the role and said, hire whoever you need, I won't be able to come back. um and so then they started, Viz Media started the auditioning process with Bang Zoom, who's the studio. And I remember getting the audition, and they were like, we want you to try and voice match. And I had already voice matched Maria of Harrington on a previous project before that never, I don't think it ever actually released. They sent over a recording from her from the first season. And so I had to voice match her. And then like a month later, I thought, oh, I guess I didn't get it. That sucks. I thought I would get it because I've already voice matched her before. Dang it. Oh well. And then a month later, I get a call and says, we want you to come in for a callback. And I'm like, oh, okay. So we go in for the callback, and this time they say, okay, we're gonna do one take where you do voice match Maria of Harrington again. But then we're gonna do another one where we can stray from that a little bit and you can add in your own flavor. And I was like, okay, cool. So we go through callback, and they say, okay, great, we're gonna start recording in this, because it was May. We're gonna like that I did the callback. They said we're gonna start recording in mid-June. So if you can send us your availability around that time, that would be great. And I'm like, great, awesome. I will do that. So I sent them my availability for that time. You know, they always ask for your availability even before you book the role, just to make sure.
Mhm.
And then mid-June comes by, and I'm like, are you kidding? I really didn't get it. Dang it. Now, mind you, you should never get attached to roles, and this is exactly why, because then you get upset, and then you get like you get mad and stuff like that. And I remember actually talking to Zeno Robinson on July 4th about it, because he went to Anime Expo earlier that day, but then we both ended up at a party together later that night. Zeno Robinson was there, and I was like, I'm so upset, Zeno, that I dang it. And I was talking to him about it because he knew about the callbacks and the auditions, because he was a smaller part on the show. So I was like, I'm kind of upset that I didn't get it, dang it. And also he's worked with Mari, he also is on Big City Greens, so
Mhm.
he works with Mariev, so he knew that the role was being replaced from Mariev herself. And I want you to remember that I'm sitting there on July 4th, basically upset with myself with Zeno, and telling him this because this is important later. And it's July 4th, and they told me, remember, that the recording was going to start in June. I then get an email August 1st
Wow.
that says, hey, we want you to come in for One Punch Man, A Hero Nobody Knows, the video game. And what are your availability? And I'm like, this is my availability, but what character am I? Am I just some NPCs? Or like what's going on here? Like, what character am I? And then they send back, great, can we have you for this day on this time? And I said, yes, you can. But again, what character am I? Please let me know. I would really like that information, please, so I know what I'm doing. No answer. At the time, a production person that was in on the email chain I was really close with, so and he was the one I was directly talking to, but I wasn't getting any answer on who the freak I was. So I emailed him separately away from the chain, so that way it didn't have the casting director and Viz Media on that chain. So I was like, hey, Cayman, who the and I said the F word, who the F am I in One Punch Man? Please tell me. And he goes, nobody told you? And why are you still not telling me who I am? So I said, no one's told me. I'm really upset. What's going on? Please tell me what character I am. And he goes, they told me they emailed you a month ago saying you booked the role of Tatsumaki. No, they didn't. Cayman, no, they didn't. They never did. They never said that. They what? And he was like, yeah, that seems like kind of effed up that they didn't tell you that. But yeah, you're Tatsumaki. Don't worry about it. I was like, gosh, what's going on? So I messaged Zeno immediately after that, and I go, Zeno, I'm Tatsumaki. They just told me. And he's like, oh yeah, I know. I'm sorry. Zeno, what do you mean you know? And he's like, they told me back on Anime Expo on July 4th. Zeno, you went to Anime Expo on July 4th and they told you at Anime Expo that I was Tatsumaki? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, we met later there at a party where I was upset with you about how I didn't book the role. What do you mean you know? And he's like, yeah, I just figured that you'd want to hear it from them instead of me. So I just let you complain about it. And I was like, Zeno, no, I would have much rather you have told me. What the heck? And he's like, honestly, I figured they'd tell you eventually. And I'm like, Zeno, they didn't tell me until today. And he's like, well, that seems ridiculous. And I'm like, yeah. Also, what the heck? They literally told another actor that I was Tatsumaki before they told me. And so that's great.
Wow.
They must have thought they emailed me, but then like messed up or something. That happens every once in a while. But yeah, that's what happened with that.
I haven't. I know people don't seem to really talk a whole lot about Somali, but that's a really great show.
I don't know why people don't talk about it more. I love that show so much, and it's such a cute show, and also it gets into some dark places too, because Somali's only 7 and dealing with like, gosh, she has to deal with a lot too, and she's also worried about being abandoned and stuff like that, and I love that show so much, and I was also excited with the people that I got to work with on it. Kyle A. Bear, who plays the forest spirit, and or who I called Father the entire time, so that's what I know him as. And then like Christina V. Also, I remember her messaging me saying, "You sound really cute as Somali," and I'm like, "You're in it!" I love Christina so much, so that was really excited to have her work with me on that too. And the show is just really cute. The show is so cute. And I was really happy with working on that one.
I'm not sure if you know either, but the lead character designer of Somali is actually, it's in her much later developed art style, but she was actually Ikuko Ito. She was the most like well-known person to work on Sailor Moon. Like she did all the like really iconic. Yeah, well, you do know, okay.
Yeah, I remember that too. Yeah, she's so talented. Oh my god. I can't do drawing or painting very well. So anybody that can do that is like, oh, that's crazy. You know? Yeah, she's crazy talented.
And then I know you've been asked like everything about Paimon that you probably could be, but has there been cases where you've had to get pretty emotionally involved for that role as well?
A little bit. Paimon luckily is a very happy-go-lucky character, and is meant to basically, even when things get sad, Paimon's character is meant to kind of bring you out of that a little bit, so that way, it doesn't get too sad. Basically, I think of Paimon as like the emotional support character to the traveler, which is whoever is playing.
Right.
To be like, I know things suck, but I'm here to tell you that it doesn't. I'm here to keep you going and keep you pointed in the right direction. So Paimon herself doesn't necessarily get super sad. There are times where it does happen, but Paimon for the most part tries to look on the brighter side of things or keep things funny. Luckily, we've never really had to go that deep into it. Of course, we're not even done with the character yet. So maybe 3 years from now, Paimon will have like a really sad scene. Who knows? We won't know until that happens because I don't know what's gonna happen in the future.
And with developing her voice, was that easy to sustain?
Oh yeah. I'm a very high pitched soprano, so going into those types of pitches is not hard for me at all. And if needed, and it has been needed, I can hold that voice all day. No problem.
And when you got that role, did you also, if you can talk about it, did you audition for other like main characters?
I did. So when I originally auditioned for Paimon, I was originally sent 3 auditions. One was for Paimon, the other was for the female traveler, and I am like 90% sure the other character was Amber, but if it wasn't Amber, it was definitely Xiangling. So it was either one of those two, but I'm 90% sure it was Amber. So I was sent those 3 auditions, and I got the callback, of course, but I only got it for Paimon. I got the callback just for Paimon. So I was like, okay, if I'm gonna be in this game, whatever it is, this is the chance that I get. And then and I was kind of sad at like first because I was thinking, oh, Paimon's just like the friend, like the guide or whatever. I don't think Paimon's gonna have as many lines as the traveler, so I'm kind of sad that I'm not the traveler. Boy, was I stupid. Well, because especially on the audition, originally they had put down like how important, like, or how involved these characters were going to be, and Paimon was the same number as the traveler, but I'm like, but the traveler is the protagonist, so obviously the traveler is gonna have more line. Nope. I was super wrong. That's not the case. Paimon, like, it wasn't until we actually got into, like, when I booked the character and I was like, okay, it's probably going to be, not that long. They're like, you have the most lines out of anybody. And I was like, wait, why?
And what are your personal opinions on the theories that she's like evil and the final boss? And
I don't think that's necessarily the case. Now, mind you, it could be. It because I don't even know the end of this. They won't tell me what's gonna go on in the end, so I could be wrong. I of course have my own theories, but at the same time, I try my best not to vocalize those theories because then people, where are you going? Oh, are you flying? Okay, sorry. But if I post my theories, people will then be like, "This is exactly what's gonna happen. They broke NDA. It's definitely going to happen because they're the voice actor." So I'm like, nope. I just gotta stay out of that conversation. Now again, do I think that they're gonna be evil? No, but again, I have no idea if that's going to be the case or not. I have my reasons why. And number one reason is I don't think Paimon is smart enough to be evil. Paimon has like maybe 1 brain cell, and I'm pretty sure she shares it with the traveler. So
yeah.
And I'm like, dumb people like that are not smart enough to like if it would be one thing if she was like evil and dumb the whole time. But she's like actively trying to help the traveler. So if she was evil, that means she would have to be smart enough to manipulate not only the traveler, but everybody else involved. Everybody at Mondstadt, everybody at Liyue, everybody at like Inazuma. Paimon is not that smart. Also, when has Paimon ever been secretive about anything? Like even actively when Paimon has said things and the Traveler has been like, hey, we're not supposed to talk about that. And Paimon's like, oh, right. And then tries to fix it. So I'm like, there is no way on this God's green earth that Paimon is smart enough that if she was actually evil, she would be able to keep her mouth shut about it. like there's no way. And also, this is my personal belief, and again, I could be wrong. They could throw me through a loop later on, but I think if Paimon was evil, they would at least tell me that, so that way I, as the actor, could know that. Again, they could not. They could truly be like, nah, you're gonna go through a whole loop, and then it's blah blah blah. They could do what they want, but generally speaking, if there is something that is secretive that the actor needs to know for the character, they tell the actor at least that. Hi, are you coming to join us? Hello. Yeah.
I'm also a big fan of Kimono Jihen as well. So
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yay! I loved that one. Also was a dark one, and also that was my first. My first time working with AJ. And AJ is a great actor, AJ Beckles,
right.
Who got to play my brother. And he is a great person, and I've become friends with him since then. And I love him. He is like a brother to me. It's funny because he plays my older brother in Kimono Jihen, but he's younger than me. But he is definitely like a brother to me in real life. I love AJ.
And one of my other general questions too is what do you think is the case where you've had to alter your voice the most significantly?
It would be for Dino Girl Galco, and it would be for specifically when I had to voice the Galco parts.
Yeah.
Because I play Naoko and Galco, which means I was also playing the dinosaur. And generally speaking, when you're a high-pitched soprano, they don't ask you to do growly, low dinosaur voices, generally speaking. So it was one of the few times where I had to really get into my deep voice and deep and growly and stuff like that, and use that for that character. So that would be the time that I definitely, because high pitch, I can do that all day, any day. That's easy for me. Lower pitches, I'm not really asked to do that much, so it's definitely more of an exploratory thing for me when I explore that side of my range.
It was interesting too that it seemed like at some points with Tindianko that her voice was lower, like with the emotion and confliction and.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, generally speaking, especially because she goes to that moment with Sailor Moon. Spoiler alert for those that have not seen it, but she goes through that moment where she's literally like split in half from being good and bad.
Right.
And so the idea behind that was that when she was having her good side come out, that the pitch would change a little bit, so that way you could tell that there was something going on, that it was a different almost side of her, but not to the point where you thought it was a completely different person. At least that's what I thought in my head when I was playing that dual part for that part.
I haven't really seen you talk about Yumi Totobami very much either.
Oh, because so Kakegurui, awesome show, but Yumi, it's funny. I tell people that I voice Yumi all the time, and then and because Kakegurui is a big show, but Yumi basically has maybe 4 lines in all of season 2. Okay, maybe 4 lines. I might that might even be a lot. I probably am giving it way too much credit, but Yumi's not that big of a character, so I don't really talk about it much, because for me, I'm like, who's gonna care about a character that only has 4 lines in one season? And it turns out that apparently Yumi has a huge following, or at least bigger than I would expect for a character that small.
Right.
Because anytime that I say that, and Kakegurui fans are just like, oh, I loved her. And I was like, why? She exists for like 2 seconds. Like, and they're like, no, she's so funny and stupid and just like and it's a good part. And I'm like, it literally 4 seconds, guys. Like so I don't necessarily talk about that a lot, although the show is fantastic. I love the show. The show is great. I also, Yumi gets to be the sister of the sister of, oh god, I forgot that character's name, but also another Tatsumaki, right? And that character is played by Jen Losey, and I adore Jen Losey. Jen Losey is like a sister to me. I mean, a lot of the voice acting community are like sisters and brothers to me. And Jen Losey, like, that was the first time that I actually got to work with her. And also, we got to be sisters, so it was even better. What we're hoping for is that if they ever come out with a season 3, that they will explore our character dynamic a little bit more. Because again, Yumi's not in the show that much.
Right.
At that point, like, we're really hoping that we get to see, because it seems like Yumi is this happy-go-lucky, character that's just a little bit dumb. And then her sister will, in a way, tell her she's wrong, but it's like the one time that Jen Losey's character is actually like not actively being a bitch because she's dealing with her sister rather than other people in the show.
Right.
So yeah. Yeah.
Have you worked with Steve Staley more than that?
I believe that was the only time so far that I've worked with Steve Staley. And I would love to work with him again. I really just want to be on Demon Slayer, and I know he directs that. So
Yeah. I know your role is Bakura in Killing Slimes. That's fun as well.
Yes, that one was also fun. That one was also another situation where I auditioned for the lead character in that show, and then the 2 little slime girls.
Right.
I auditioned. Oh, and I also auditioned for the Red Dragon girl. That girl as well. And I didn't get a call. So I was like, okay, I'm not in the show. That's sad, but whatever, it happens. I'll deal with it. And then all of a sudden I get a call from my agent. I'm in the hospital. In the literal hospital. And I'm about to, like, we're planning for surgery, emergency surgery, like the next day. And my agent calls me and goes, they want you for, I've been killing slimes for 300 years. And I'm like, I'm in the hospital. When do they want me? Because I'm getting surgery like tomorrow.
Mhm.
And because this surgery is literally taking a foot of my colon out of me, I'm pretty sure I won't be out of the hospital for at least another week. And that's if I'm lucky. And so basically we had to turn it down at first because they wanted me like within the next few days. And I was like, there's no way. I can't. There's no way. And then, so I was like, that freaking sucks. I wanted to be a part of that show so bad. But I was in the hospital. There was nothing I could do. And then after a week goes by, we start talking about me going home. And I was like, hey, the doctors are starting to talk about me going home on Friday. Thursday. So just so you know, so for any studios that like want me, because also I was recording for Genshin at the time, so I was really saying let the people at Genshin know that I will be available after this Thursday. So she did the smart thing because she's my agent and contacted Studiopolis again without like me even asking and said, hey, Corina's going to be available after Thursday. Do you still need somebody for that show? And luckily, even though they said they needed me for like a few days after, they said, actually, we had to postpone. So yeah, we do. We'll gladly keep Corina for that role if they want it. And I was like, oh my God, yes, I absolutely want it. What the heck? So I got really lucky again that they happened to have to postpone. So, because yeah, if that hadn't happened, I would not be, at least I wouldn't be that character in the show.
Right. And having talked to Michael Sork as well, I know that he's hilarious. Like, what was your experience?
I love him.
Yeah.
Oh my God, working with him is so much fun. And that was also the second time I got to work with him, I believe. Because the first time I got to work with him was on God of High School.
Mm-hmm.
And he is so fun, so hilarious. He also is really great to work with simply because as an actor working with a director who is very upbeat keeps your energy up, so that way you can like if your director is really high energy, you'll be high energy because you feed off of each other. And especially with the pandemic and we're all over Zoom, it's hard to get that energy from the director because you're not actually in a studio together. So, but Michael Sorge has so much energy that it doesn't matter if it's over Zoom, you're gonna feel it. And so that's really helpful, especially for a show that's as high energy as 300. Yeah, I've been killing slimes for 300 years.
Mhm.
So working with him was fantastic.
Is there anything else upcoming that you can safely talk about, or?
Not at the. Oh well, the Somnium Files Nirvana Initiative. That one I can. That one is coming out this year. And this time Mizuki is actually, so in the previous game, Mizuki was basically the adopted daughter of the protagonist. The person you play as is Date.
Mhm.
And he's the one that ends up with Mizuki as his ward, basically adopted child. And in this game, Nirvana Initiative, she is now 18, still in high school, but is 18 and is working as a detective. And so she's the character you get to play as. And she's also working with Aiba, who previously was with Date. So it's a really cool experience, and I'm really excited for it. We've recorded a lot of it already, and I'm excited to see what people think of it.
Okay. My final question is always asking, what do you want your legacy to be?
That's a good question. I don't know. I guess I want to be seen like I would like to be seen as like more of inspiration for those other people with Crohn's disease like I have, and also autism. I'm autistic, and then I also have Crohn's disease, which is why I have that early onset arthritis. It's actually from Crohn's. And also the reason why I had to have that surgery last year, where they were taking a foot of my colon out, that's also because of Crohn's. Most of my health issues are from Crohn's disease itself. And so I want to be known as a inspiration for other people with Crohn's disease and autoimmune disorders in general. Although I'm not the only actor with voice actor in Genshin with an autoimmune disorder that is making it happen, because Kaylee Mills has lupus, and so we actually bonded when we first met, because because we both have autoimmune disorders. So she also is very much into working out for the same reason that I am, which is to stay healthy for our diseases that we have to deal with. But yeah, basically I want to be inspiring to those that also have to deal with the same issues that I do. Yeah.
And is there something that you want people to take away from your performances?
I hope they have fun. That's all. I hope they enjoy it. That's all.
Well, thanks. I'm glad that we got to do this.
I'm glad we did too. Thank you so much.
I'll be sure to, if you want to see it, I'll be sure to send it to you once I have it.
Yeah, absolutely send it to me, because then I can put it on my social medias as well.
Oh, okay, great. Thanks.
Yeah. Of
Okay.
course. I like promoting the interviews that I'm in.
Okay. Great.
Great.
We'll talk to you later.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.